This is ESBR Boxing. Delighted to be joined by Elliot Gregg, and we are once again in preview mode. Massive heavyweight fight on the Queensberry Matchroom 5 versus 5 Saudi card in Riyadh, Saturday, June 1st. No world title officially on the line here, although there were rumours that maybe a vacant title was going to be on the line. But we are, of course, talking about Daniel Dubois, Frank Warren's hope against Filip Hrgovic, who's on Team Eddie Hearn in Matchroom. So, yeah, how will this one play out? Cracking fight. You've got Filip Hrgovic 17-0 undefeated. Daniel Dubois 20-2, maybe coming of age now as well, despite still only being 26 years old. We'll come on to a bit of the fight a bit more later in this video, mate. But it's a delight to be joining you for the preview, and I'm going to throw you a tough question straight away, and that is: do you believe Daniel Dubois or Filip Hrgovic will ever become world heavyweight champion?
Oh, Paul, first of all, thank you for that eloquent breakdown. It's a joy to be with you as always. Thinking about this one now, I think we've spoken about this previously about Daniel Dubois, and I said no, but I'm actually going to change my mind actually on Daniel Dubois. I think Daniel Dubois actually can become a world champion, to be perfectly honest with you. Um, what are the reasons for that? The reasons for that, really, I suppose, he's still only 26 years old. I look at maybe the generation of fighters that are coming through, one of which is Hrgovic, and they don't necessarily impress me too much either, to be perfectly honest with you. So I think he's got a live chance of becoming a world champion if he gets in, maybe like again, kind of a favourable draw to a certain degree. I mean, he's got to stay away from AJ, frankly. If AJ stays around for quite a bit longer, I don't see Daniel Dubois beating him, frankly. And he's only 34. So I think if he can get a draw against maybe one of those other guys that's like coming through, maybe sort of 5 to 10, maybe 5 to 15 at world level, I think he can beat him, frankly. Hrgovic, on the other hand, I don't see becoming a world champion. No, I think Hrgovic for me has actually been, and this is might be quite controversial, but it's actually been relatively disappointing. Frankly, I mean, he's got that victory over Zhang, but I had Zhang winning that fight. And you see him fighting the likes of McKean, Mark the Moore. You don't see anyone really. I mean, I know he came Molina and they've got Kevin Johnson on there, but no one really to me stands out. Yeah, I think Hrgovic needs a big win. Frankly, I think this is a massive fight for Hrgovic. Actually, if Hrgovic can come through this Dubois fight, maybe I'll change my mind. But for me, no, I don't actually see Hrgovic becoming world champion, but I do see the possibility for Daniel Dubois to become world champion. Paul, do you agree with me? Do you disagree with me? Talk to me.
Do you know what's so interesting? We obviously don't talk about our real. We have a rough idea who we're gonna each other are maybe gonna back and the answer to some of those questions. But what you've said, I would probably say is the opposite of what a lot of boxing fans would say. But I actually agree with like, everything you've said there. I think out of the two, I actually give Daniel Dubois more of a chance now of becoming world champion. I'm not saying that it's nailed on. Depends on obviously the fights that you can get, so on and so forth. But you know, Filip Hrgovic is just flat. He's just not impressed me whatsoever. It sounds, yeah, I just haven't been impressed by Filip Hrgovic. Don't know whether that's harsh. You look at it, he's never been beaten, but in my mind, he lost the Zhang fight. Um, the Dempsey McKean one, I was obviously at that. Was on the AJ Helenius undercard. It was a bit of a snooze fest. I think he obviously got the stoppage in the end, but just went through the motions. Didn't really appeal to me. Daniel Dubois, on the other hand, you look at what he did against Usyk, whether or not you believe it was a low blow or not. He was in the fight up to that point, obviously ended up getting stopped, but you're talking about Usyk, who we now know is the single best heavyweight of this generation. So there's no disgrace in that. The Joe Joyce one maybe came too early. Obviously, people throw it about the quit word as well. And yeah, you can't really disagree with that. But I believe Filip Hrgovic potentially has a bit of quit in him as well. So whether that comes to fruition or not, I believe he was on the verge of quitting a few times in that Zhang fight. So we will see. But for my man, mate, yeah, I'm not going to go out on a limb and say that Dubois 100% becomes world champion. But I do agree with the statement you've made. I think out of the two, he's the more likely, and I just don't see Filip Hrgovic becoming world champion. I think there are too many heavyweights as well. Once the likes of Fury, Usyk, and Joshua and Wilder or whatever have retired, we still got those ones coming through. Dubois being one of them, and Jared Anderson obviously still lurking about. Kabayal now as well, who's put in some sensational performances. Joseph Parker still young and fresh. Then obviously in years to come you'll have the likes of Moses Atama and stuff. So yeah, I don't see her Filip Hrgovic becoming world champion. I will say that I do see Dubois getting it, whether that be the third, fourth, fifth time. I'll ask, and he's only 26. He's got plenty of years left in the sport. So yeah, I think he will do. What I wanted to ask you there, mate, you kind of said that you flipped your mind on Dubois. You weren't really impressed by him and never thought he would become world champion, but perhaps you've changed your mind. Kind of in line with what you've said there, mate. Who's impressed you more in their respective career?
It's hard because you touched on it there as well, and you look at the records. Obviously, Hrgovic hasn't lost. Dubois lost twice, but for me, it's in those losses where I actually saw some promise. Obviously, like Usyk, I discount that loss immediately from Daniel Dubois because Usyk's in a different level to Daniel Dubois, so I can't really make any comparisons there. And I'm not talking about the low blow and all that sort of nonsense. I'm just saying, like forget that, forget that. But then obviously you look at Joe Joyce. That was a live fight, and Joe Joyce at that point, very, very good victory for Joe Joyce. Obviously went on beat Parker as well, didn't he? So at that point, you're looking at him going, Joe Joyce. At one point, people were talking about Joe Joyce fighting someone like AJ having a world title shot himself. So that's that's still a credible performance in Daniel Dubois. Obviously, he got criticised for that fight and the way it kind of the quit, as it were. But I look at that and go, you know what? Like, if you're being jabbed into being able to see at the age of your career, you've got a fractured eye socket, whatever. I think, to be honest with you, in some ways, you may look at that in sort of a couple of years' time and go, if he is a world champion again, it was actually a very good decision and prolonged his career. So for me, I look at those fights, but also look at Gerald Miller. I think Gerald Miller wins the best fight on either one's record. I actually had Gerald Miller, I think, potentially being able to beat Dubois in that fight. I thought Dubois handled him really well, showed great hand speed and great power. So for me, that's what I look at him, and I'm impressed by that record. When I look at Hrgovic, I see the Zhang fight, which again, I suppose you look at it on paper and go, right, the Zhang fight is the best win, but I had him losing that fight. That's why I've discounted it against Daniel Dubois' victory. But I look at the other guys he's fought, and none of them really are worth mentioning. I mean, there's like Pavel Swar, Tom Little, I suppose you might know from the sort of circuit with Kevin Johnson, Molina. These guys are just on the circuit, aren't they? If there's fighting heavyweights and getting stopped or like giving them rounds, essentially. And you look at Mark Demoy, McKean, like not fighters really, not like known fighters or fighters you could be impressed about. So for me, his career's almost kind of stagnated since that Zhang victory. Um, so I've actually been more impressed by Daniel Dubois because he at least seems to be sort of ascending in the right way, and you see some sort of progress there. So for me, I'm not sold on Hrgovic necessarily. I'm not sold on him style wise, always necessarily like the career that he's had to date. I think he needs a match. I think this victory for Hrgovic will almost be like what Miller was for Dubois, almost like a bit of a standout. When you look at his record and go fair play, like you're live, your name is there. You're around the sort of heavyweights in that way. But yeah, for me, Daniel Dubois so far. What about yourself? Do you agree? Do you disagree?
Yeah, mate, in short, I kind of do agree with everything you've said there. I think, as you correctly said, Hrgovic's best win, and the best win on either resume is the Zhang one, but I don't want to count it because I don't believe he won the fight. So I agree with what you've said there then about Dubois. You've obviously got the Lorena one, thought that he got dropped a couple of times and he came back and won there. So that's kind of a gut check, I suppose, after a few question marks about the Q word. With Dubois, he showed guts in that one. Then obviously you look at his one against Jarrell Miller. A lot of people backing Jarrell Miller to win that fight. He dealt with him relatively easily and obviously got that stoppage in the end, which isn't easy against the man who's what near 400 pounds or whatever he was. So yeah, I agree with you. I think Dubois impressed me not only in the victories. Obviously, I think he's more powerful than Hrgovic, and he's also impressed me in how the way he's bounced back from defeat. So people might call us British bias here or whatever, but genuinely it isn't. It's just nothing against Filip Hrgovic. He's a good fighter. I just don't think he's a great fighter. I think Daniel Dubois could be. And I think, yeah, I personally agree with you, mate. I think Daniel Dubois is the better fighter of the two. Come to the end of the video, mate. We'd like to give our predictions. 10 seconds, 15 seconds or less. Tell me how this one plays out.
I actually see. I'm going to go straight in, mate. I see Dynamite Daniel Dubois stopping Filip Hrgovic here. I really do. I think he's got the hand speed to do it. I was impressed with him against Usyk. I thought he showed better movements. Looked like he improved in some ways, and I just thought the speed with Hrgovic. I just see someone who's essentially too wooden. I'm not been impressed by his movement either. And I think the movement and the speed of Daniel Dubois were too much for him. I can see Dubois stopping him. If I had to go for a round, probably somewhere late, to be honest, 8 to 10, 8 plus, I'd go with maybe late in the fight. But I actually see him stopping Hrgovic. I really do. And I hope to see it as well. And I don't care if people call it British bias. We're going, baby, get the Union Jack on my shoulders. Let's go.
Very interesting, mate. Really, really interesting one because I'd say about 75% of the boxing fraternity here backing Hrgovic. I agree with you. I'm going Daniel Dubois. I'm going stoppage. I'm going earlier than you are. I'm going rounds
Come on,
5
mate.
to 8. I think he's going to stop him. I know there's the sparring rumors of Hrgovic stopping Dubois, but that's said and gone. That's water off a duck's back. It's years ago. I'm telling you, Daniel Dubois stopping Filip Hrgovic. Let's go, guys. Let us know your thoughts in the comments. Who do you believe wins this fight? Who's got the better resume so far? Do you think either ever becomes world champion? Let us know your thoughts in the comments and how you see this one playing out. Elliot, thanks very much for joining me as always. Guys, thanks for watching and speak to you again soon.
Thank you very much, Paul. And as always, guys, as I said, thank you very much for watching.